Let's get started with our first news. Merab says he will knock out Corey Sandhagen at UFC 320. Known as one of the most relentless wrestlers in the sport, Merab has built his career on pressure, pace, and non-stop grappling. But this time, he is sending a very different kind of warning. He doesn't just want to out-wrestle Corey, he wants to finish him with strikes. That's right, Merab is looking for the knockout. Before his fight with Sean O'Malley, Merab hinted that he wanted to showcase more of his striking, proving that he's not just a one-dimensional fighter. Now ahead of UFC 320, he has made his intentions crystal clear. In a video posted to Instagram, Merab looked into the camera and boldly stated his goal, telling Corey, "My go, sorry Corey, sleep baby." He even captioned the clip with the message, "Looking for the KO next time." This is not the first time Merab has hinted at evolving his game. Over the years, he has shown flashes of developing power in his hands, but his main weapon has always been his relentless wrestling pressure. That wrestling threat is what makes his striking so much more dangerous. With opponents constantly worried about the takedown, Merab is able to create openings for punches, kicks, and combinations. Corey, on the other hand, is known as one of the slickest and most technical strikers in the division. They don't call him the Sandman for nothing. His precision, creativity, and timing have earned him a reputation as one of the most dangerous fighters on the feet. He's finished top contenders with spinning attacks, flying knees, and devastating counters. On paper, Corey clearly holds the edge in striking, but Merab's game is not about playing on paper. His pace, his cardio, and his willingness to throw volume until his opponent breaks make him an entirely different challenge. That's what makes this matchup so intriguing. If Merab comes in determined to stand and trade, fans could witness a completely different side of him. He has already proven himself as the #1 contender, the man who keeps pushing forward no matter what. But now he wants to send a statement. He wants to show that he's not just the machine of wrestling, but a fighter who can take out an elite striker with his hands. UFC 320 is shaping up to be an electrifying event, and this clash between Merab and Corey is at the center of the buzz. Will the machine break the Sandman with relentless pressure, or will he land the knockout blow that he's been promising? One thing is for sure, Merab is not coming into this fight just to win by decision. He is coming to make a statement with a knockout. Before moving to the next news, we have one quick request for you. We're constantly working on improving our content to earn your love and support. That's why we truly appreciate it if you could take just a moment to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Move on to another news. Islam Makhachev's manager Ali Abdelaziz has shut down talks of a potential super fight between Islam and Khamzat, making it clear that fans should not expect to see it inside the octagon. The speculation began after Khamzat's dominant performance at UFC 319, where he captured the middleweight title with a win over Du Plessis in the main event. That victory sparked conversations about the quickest path for Khamzat to become the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, with many pointing to a clash against Islam. Islam, the former lightweight champion and former pound-for-pound king, recently vacated his title to move up to welterweight in pursuit of a second belt. His first challenge at 70 pounds is already set, with a fight against JDM, which Abdelaziz described as a done deal. When asked about Khamzat calling him out, Islam responded cautiously, saying, "We'll see," but he also emphasized that he didn't want any tension between their people. Still, the buzz around the potential showdown grew quickly, as fans began to imagine what a fight between these two dominant forces might look like. Abdelaziz, however, was quick to put an end to the speculation. Speaking on Submission Radio, he said plainly, "This fight will never happen." He went on to explain exactly why. First, he said Khamzat is simply too big. Although Khamzat spent part of his career competing at welterweight, Abdelaziz does not believe he can ever make that weight class again. Now that Khamzat is the middleweight champion, the size gap is even more pronounced. The second reason is their personal connection. Abdelaziz pointed out that Islam and Khamzat know each other. They are from the same region, and there is a level of respect that makes the fight unrealistic. And honestly, Abdelaziz said these fights make absolutely no sense. Third, Abdelaziz suggested that if Khamzat really wanted a new challenge, moving up to light heavyweight would make far more sense than moving down. That path could create exciting opportunities without forcing a matchup that doesn't align with the natural flow of either fighter's career. Finally, Abdelaziz emphasized that Khamzat has plenty of business to take care of in his own division. As the new middleweight champion, there are multiple contenders waiting for their shot, and Abdelaziz believes Khamzat must give them that chance. He needs to be fair to the middleweight contenders, Abdelaziz said, stressing that the champion should focus on defending his belt before even thinking about cross-division fights. With those points laid out, Abdelaziz made it absolutely clear. No matter how much the MMA world talks about Islam versus Khamzat, the fight is one that fans will never see. Move on to another news. A few weeks ago, the UFC shook the combat sports world when it confirmed a historic $7 billion streaming deal with Paramount, set to begin next year. While the announcement was celebrated as a massive win for the promotion, it also signaled the slow death of something that has defined fighter paydays for decades: the pay-per-view model. For years, champions have relied on PPV points to cash in big. These weren't just bonuses, they were the kind of checks that could literally change a fighter's life overnight. But with streaming becoming the new standard, the old system is fading away, and naturally, fighters are not too happy about it. Some are openly frustrated, others are waiting to see how things play out, and then there's Ali Abdelaziz, manager of Khabib, who decided to throw a bucket of cold water on the whole discussion. No sugarcoating, no fancy wording, just the harsh truth about pay-per-view in today's UFC. Speaking on Submission Radio, Abdelaziz said flat out, "The UFC right now has no PPV star outside Conor. Nobody can hit 1 million buys. This whole pay-per-view thing is a myth." And just like that, he ripped the band-aid off. According to him, not even the newer stars who get all the hype, guys like Sean O'Malley or Ilia, can really move the needle when it comes to PPV buys. None of these guys sell pay-per-views, he said, with the kind of blunt delivery that makes fighters want to check their bank apps immediately after. To be fair, Abdelaziz wasn't just pointing fingers at other fighters. He admitted that even some of the guys on his own roster don't bring in PPV numbers either. But the key point he made was simple: hitting 1 million buys is the only way fighters make serious PPV money. Without it, the payouts are just not what people imagine them to be. And right now, outside of Conor, there isn't anyone alive in the UFC who can consistently hit those numbers. It's a reality check that might sting for fighters who love to talk about being stars. The truth is, most fans just aren't buying PPVs the way they used to. With streaming becoming the norm, the era of bragging about being a PPV king may be over. Fighters might soon have to accept that their biggest money won't come from PPV points anymore, but from guaranteed contracts, sponsorships, and maybe how funny they can be on TikTok. Because if you're counting on PPV buys to buy that dream mansion, well, unless your name is Conor, you might want to settle for a nice apartment with free Wi-Fi. That was the reality check Abdelaziz delivered, mixing honesty with a touch of brutal humor, reminding everyone that in today's fight game, the days of life-changing PPV payouts are just about done. Move on to another news. Sean Strickland has once again found himself in the middle of controversy, this time after giving his take on the Raja Jackson situation. The outspoken fighter made it clear that he does not believe Raja should go to prison, a stance that has caused quite a bit of backlash online. On X, Sean wrote a lengthy post defending his perspective, sharing his own personal experiences as a reason for his opinion. Jackson's kid shouldn't go to jail. Prison should always be a last resort. I was arrested at 19 for 2 felony charges. If the DA had its way, I would have spent 5 to 6 years in prison. After 6 years in a cell, coming out with nothing, indoctrinated with gangs and violence, I guarantee I would have killed someone. He explained that during that time he even remembered being impressed by another inmate who picked up a murder charge, and that mindset could have easily become his future. Instead, Sean said he was fortunate. He pled out, received 100 days in jail or work release, a lot of anger management, and victim restitution after nearly 2 years in court. He admitted that he had no money, but a lawyer took his case for free, saving him from a much worse outcome. According to him, this deal is the only reason he is alive today. He wrote, "Bottom line is, it's not about the person in prison, it's about who they become when they're out. And I believe if I wasn't offered that deal, I would be dead today. And more than likely someone else would be dead as well. Rehabilitation over prison always." While some people understood his point, many others were furious at the comparison and slammed his opinion as one of the worst takes he's ever shared. One reply said, "Yeah, I'm a fan, man, but you clearly aren't rehabilitated. you're unhinged and could easily kill someone. Prison isn't always about rehab. It's often about protecting society from someone dangerous. There's a big gap between being 19 and being 25. By 25, you should have impulse control and act like a human being in society, not a feral animal. Another critic went even further, saying, Raja has no impulse control. He almost beat a man to death in front of the entire world. He's a danger to society and should be put in a cage for a very long time. Sean, this is the worst opinion you've ever given. He's an adult, trained in MMA by his father, and he unloaded dozens of times into the head of a defenseless man. If he doesn't know that's wrong now, no rehab is going to help. Only prison. Wise up. The reactions continue to pour in, with fans split between Strickland's belief in second chances and the overwhelming call for punishment in Raja's case. Move on to another news. Daniel Cormier believes the UFC would have been making a huge mistake if it missed out on an Ilia vs Paddy showdown. The lightweight picture seemed to clear up after Armin came forward saying he would not be Ilia's next opponent. That statement immediately sparked backlash in the MMA community, with many accusing Ilia of ducking the toughest contender in the division. After all, Armin had already been the backup fighter for UFC 317, and a matchup between him and Ilia felt like the natural fight to make. But on the latest episode of Good Guy Bad Guy, Cormier pushed back on that narrative. He didn't think the UFC was protecting Ilia from Armin. Instead, he argued that the real reason is tied to what happened when Paddy stormed into the cage. After Ilia's brutal knockout of Charles Oliveira, that face-off created so much buzz that, in Cormier's eyes, there was no way for the UFC to simply ignore it. Sometimes you go so far down a path that you can't reverse it, Cormier said. It doesn't work like that. He explained that once fans saw Ilia and Paddy inside that cage together, the seed was planted. The hype was real, and the UFC had to at least consider capitalizing on it. I get what Dana said. I would have never even put him in the cage. But he was in the cage, and every person that watched saw him there with Ilia. You can't reverse that. That's why if he does get the title fight, that'll be the only reason. Cormier made it clear he doesn't buy into the theory that the UFC is handpicking matchups to protect Ilia. I don't think they're saying, hey, let's put him in a fight we feel is easier to make sure our shining star stays bright. I don't think that's it. I think it's just sometimes you go too far and then you're stuck asking, how do I get out of this? For a moment, Cormier's reasoning made sense to a lot of fans. The Ilia vs Paddy confrontation felt like lightning in a bottle, the kind of raw hype the UFC rarely passes up. However, that theory was quickly debunked. Just hours after the episode aired, news broke that Ilia would not be facing Paddy next. Instead, the UFC officially booked him against Justin Gaethje, showing that the promotion had entirely different plans. Still, Cormier's words highlight an important truth about fight promotion. Sometimes the UFC finds itself caught in the middle of its own hype, moments that create so much energy it feels impossible to backtrack. In this case though, the promotion chose to go in a different direction, leaving fans to wonder what could have been. The Ilia vs Paddy fight may not be happening now, but the buzz it generated proves that if it ever does, it will be massive. Move on to another news. Ahead of UFC 311, Islam Makhachev made it crystal clear that his career would not be complete without becoming a two-division champion. Defending the lightweight strap for the fourth time, he stated that unlike his mentor Khabib, he would not retire without testing himself at welterweight. It was a bold statement, but there was one major obstacle. At the time, the 70-pound title belonged to Belal Muhammad, a close friend and training partner of Team Khabib. The idea of fighting someone from his inner circle was never on the table, and even Khabib himself confirmed that if Belal managed to hold on to the crown, Islam would stick to lightweight and continue defending his throne. But the MMA gods had other plans. At UFC 315, JDM stepped into the spotlight and completely flipped the script, dethroning Belal in dramatic fashion. With that, the door to welterweight glory suddenly swung wide open. Islam no longer had to worry about clashing with a brother in arms. The path was clear, and history was back within reach. Soon after, the Dagestani powerhouse made another huge decision. He vacated his lightweight title ahead of UFC 317, where Ilia would go on to knock out Charles Oliveira to become the new king of the division. With that chapter firmly closed, Islam turned his full attention to the welterweight dream. For months, speculation ran wild. Would Islam truly make the jump to 170 this year? Or was it all just talk? Fans debated endlessly. But now, the wait for clarity is over. His manager Ali Abdelaziz has all but confirmed the fight, dropping a bombshell that sends shockwaves across the MMA world. In an interview with Submission Radio, he was asked point-blank if November at Madison Square Garden was the target for Islam's welterweight debut against JDM. His answer left little doubt. At the end of the day, the fight is done. But like I'm respectful to the promotion. It's their job. They didn't announce the fight. But I know this: by the end of the year, Australia going to have no champions. Those words carry weight. Not only did Abdelaziz confirm the matchup, but he also issued a chilling prediction. JDM may have shocked the world once, but Islam is stepping into MSG with one mission only: to take his belt and cement himself among the all-time greats. The stage is set, the stakes are enormous, and if Abdelaziz is right, Australia's golden run at the top will be over by the close of